I never thought I'd be the kind of person to let my heart override my conscience. But then again, I never thought I'd find myself irresistibly drawn to the man married to my sister. Life has a cruel way of testing your limits, of challenging every belief you've held dear, and pushing you into the gray areas you swore you'd never enter. It began innocently enough. My sister Hannah and her husband Jason had always seemed like the perfect couple. They were the epitome of love and commitment, high school sweethearts who had defied the odds and built a life together. I admired them, often looking to their relationship as a model for what I hoped to find someday. But what I never imagined was that I'd find myself entangled in a web of emotions that would lead to the ultimate betrayal. It started with small moments, little things that seemed harmless at the time. Jason and I had always gotten along well. We shared similar tastes in music and movies, and we could talk for hours about books and art. Whenever I visited Hannah and Jason, I felt welcomed, like part of their little world. But it wasn't until Hannah was promoted at work and her schedule became hectic that things between Jason and me began to shift. Hannah's new position required long hours, frequent business trips, and an endless string of late-night meetings. Jason, left alone more often than not, began to lean on me for company. It started with simple requests, picking up something for dinner, helping out with their dog, or just hanging out to keep him company while Hannah was away. I didn't think much of it. After all, we were family and I was happy to help. But as the weeks turned into months, those simple requests became more frequent, more personal. We began spending more time together, just the two of us. We'd have dinner, watch movies, and talk late into the night. It was comfortable, easy, and before I knew it, I started looking forward to those evenings with Jason more than I cared to admit. The first time I realized I was in trouble was one evening after dinner. We were sitting on the couch talking about nothing in particular when Jason suddenly reached out and brushed a strand of hair from my face. It was such a small, simple gesture, but it sent a jolt through me. I looked at him, and for the first time I noticed the way his eyes lingered on mine, the way his hand rested just a little too long on my cheek. I should have pulled away, should have made some excuse to leave, but I didn't. Instead, I sat there, frozen, my heart pounding in my chest as a mix of emotions surged through me: fear, excitement, guilt, and something I wasn't ready to name. Jason's hand slid down from my cheek to my hand, and I let him take it, my fingers trembling as they intertwined with his. "This is wrong," I whispered, barely able to get the words out. "I know," he replied, his voice just as shaky, "but I can't stop thinking about you, about us." His words hung in the air, heavy and dangerous. I should have pulled away then, should have ended it before it began, but instead I leaned in closer, drawn to him in a way I couldn't explain. The space between us disappeared, and before I knew it, our lips were inches apart. "What about Hannah?" I asked, my voice filled with a mix of longing and dread. Jason hesitated, his eyes searching mine. "I love her, but I can't ignore what I'm feeling, what we're feeling." Those words shattered any remaining resistance I had. Without thinking, I closed the gap between us, pressing my lips to his in a kiss that felt both terrifying and inevitable. It was a moment that changed everything, a line crossed that I could never uncross. The kiss deepened, fueled by the forbidden nature of our connection, by the realization that we were doing something we could never take back. His hand slid around my waist, pulling me closer, and I melted into him, letting myself be consumed by the emotions I'd been trying so hard to deny. When we finally pulled apart, breathless and shaken, the reality of what we had just done hit me like a tidal wave. I pushed away from him, standing up quickly, my mind racing with guilt and confusion. "We can't do this," I said, my voice trembling. "This isn't fair to Hannah. We can't hurt her like this." Jason looked at me, his expression filled with a mix of regret and longing. "I know. But I can't pretend that I don't care about you. I don't know what to do, but I don't want to lose you." His words broke something inside me. I didn't want to lose him either, but the thought of betraying Hannah, of hurting her in a way I knew she'd never forgive, was too much to bear. I had to put a stop to this before it spiraled out of control. "We need to stop," I said firmly, forcing myself to take a step back. "We can't keep doing this. It's not right." He nodded, though I could see the reluctance in his eyes. "You're right. We need to figure this out, but maybe we need some space." "Yeah," I agreed, even as my heart ached at the thought of not seeing him. Maybe that's for the best. We spent the next few weeks avoiding each other, each of us trying to deal with the mess we'd created. I threw myself into my work, trying to distract myself from the pain of missing him, of the guilt that gnawed at me every time I thought about Hannah. But no matter how hard I tried, I couldn't shake the memory of that night, of the way it felt to be in his arms, to feel his lips on mine. And then, one evening, Jason showed up at my door. I was surprised to see him, and for a moment I considered not letting him in, knowing that nothing good could come from us being alone together again. But the look on his face, a mix of desperation and longing, broke down any defenses I had left. "We need to talk," he said, his voice raw with emotion. I stepped aside, letting him in, my heart pounding in my chest. He walked into my living room, looking around as if searching for something, maybe the right words, maybe the strength to say them. "I've been going crazy these past few weeks," he began, turning to face me. "I know we said we needed space, but I can't stop thinking about you, about us. I don't know what to do. I love Hannah, but what I feel for you, it's real, and it's tearing me apart." His confession hit me like a freight train, the weight of his words crushing me. I wanted to tell him that I felt the same, that I couldn't stop thinking about him either, but the words got caught in my throat. All I could think about was Hannah, about how much she trusted both of us, how much she loved us. How could we do this to her? "I don't know what to say, Jason," I finally managed, my voice shaking. "I care about you, but this can't happen. We can't hurt her like this." Jason looked at me, his eyes filled with pain. "I know, but I don't know how to stop. I don't know how to just turn off what I'm feeling." I closed my eyes, trying to find the strength to do what I knew I had to do. Maybe you need to tell Hannah the truth. Maybe we need to be honest with her." The suggestion hung in the air, both of us knowing what it would mean. Telling Hannah the truth would destroy her, would destroy everything. But continuing to lie, to sneak around behind her back, felt just as wrong, if not worse. "Are you sure?" Jason asked, his voice barely above a whisper. "No," I admitted, my heart breaking. "But we can't keep living like this. It's not fair to any of us." He nodded slowly, as if accepting the inevitable. "I'll talk to her. I'll tell her everything." The words felt like a death sentence, but I knew it was the right thing to do. It was the only way to stop the lies, to stop the pain we were causing. The next few days were agonizing. I waited, wondering when Hannah would call, when she would confront me, when everything would come crashing down. But the call never came. Instead, one evening, as I was getting ready for bed, there was a knock at my door. When I opened it, I found Hannah standing there, her eyes red and swollen, her face a mask of heartbreak. My stomach dropped, and I knew that Jason had told her. "Can I come in?" she asked, her voice hoarse. I nodded, stepping aside to let her in, my heart pounding in my chest. She walked into my living room, standing in the same spot where Jason had stood just days before. "I talked to Jason," she said, her voice flat. I swallowed hard, forcing myself to meet her gaze. "Hannah, I'm so sorry. I never wanted this to happen. I never wanted to hurt you." She looked at me, her eyes filled with a mixture of pain and anger. "How could you? How could both of you do this to me? I trusted you. I trusted both of you." The tears I'd been holding back finally spilled over, and I buried my face in my hands. "I'm so sorry. I hate myself for what I did, for what we did." Hannah took a deep breath, her hands shaking. "I don't know if I can ever forgive you. I don't know if I can ever forgive him. But I had to come here, to see you, to try and understand how this happened." I looked up at her, my heart breaking at the sight of her tears. "I don't have an excuse. I don't know how it happened. It just did. And I'm so sorry." We stood there in silence for what felt like an eternity, the weight of everything unsaid pressing down on us. Finally, Hannah wiped away her tears and turned to leave. "I need time," she said, her voice trembling. "I don't know what happens next, but I need time to figure it out." I nodded, too choked up to speak. And then she was gone, leaving me standing alone in the wreckage of everything we'd destroyed. In the days that followed, I heard nothing from either of them. The silence was deafening, the guilt overwhelming. I knew that I had lost them both, my sister, my friend, and whatever twisted version of love I thought I had found with Jason. I had betrayed the one person who had always been there for me, who had trusted me without question. And now I was left to pick up the pieces of the life I had shattered. One afternoon, I received a message from Jason. It was brief, just a few words, but it said everything I needed to know. "Hannah's leaving me. She can't forgive us. I'm sorry." I stared at the message, my heart sinking even further. I had hoped naively that somehow they might be able to work through it, that maybe there was a chance for redemption. But there wasn't. We had crossed a line, and now we were all paying the price. Months passed, and I tried to rebuild my life, to find some semblance of normalcy, but the guilt never went away. It lingered, a constant reminder of what I had done, of the pain I had caused. I knew that I would carry it with me for the rest of my life, that the scars of this betrayal would never fully heal. And as I stood alone in my apartment, staring at the empty space where my sister and my friend once stood, I realized that some lines, once crossed, can never be uncrossed. Some wounds can never be healed, and that is a burden I will carry forever.